There has been a huge breakthrough in Paris as part of the investigation into a jewelry heist at the world-famous Louvre Museum. Two of the alleged four suspects have been arrested, with one caught as he boarded a flight out of the country. So what do we know about the suspects, and where does the investigation go from here? We're digging into it all. Plus, speaking with a retired special agent from the FBI's art crime team about the significance of these latest developments. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Who in the world would be able to pull off the kind of heist that took place at the Louvre? Well, right now we know that two of the four people accused of that heist are in custody. Let me remind you just how big of a heist that we're talking about here. More than $100 million in historically significant, frankly priceless jewelry swiped from the Louvre in broad daylight using a stolen crane. Sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood script, but French officials say this all played out a little more than a week ago, with the thieves in and out in less than 10 minutes. Millions of people visit the Louvre every year. It's the world's largest museum. They can see masterpieces like the Mona Lisa, the Venus de Milo, and of course, the gigantic glass pyramid that towers over the entrance. French authorities recently capped the number of people who can visit per day at 30,000. And on Sunday, October 19th, four of the people visiting were not there to just see the works of art. They were there to take them. They allegedly made off with the more than $100 million worth of jewels, including royal tiaras, necklaces, and earrings that date back to the 1800s. Multiple French investigative units jumped into the action, led by the Paris Brigade for the Suppression of Banditry. How's that for a name? And the Central Office for the Fight Against Trafficking in Cultural Property. Their inquiry soon revealed that four men had broken into a section of the museum called the Apollo Gallery using a bucket truck that they had allegedly stolen. They put out traffic cones around the truck, and with the hard hats and safety vests that they were wearing, they really just looked like average construction workers. According to the New York Times, two of the thieves broke in through a second floor window and then cut through reinforced glass display cases, grabbing precious crown jewels. They climbed back out into the ladder truck, they lowered themselves down, and then they took off on motor scooters. In their rush, they actually dropped a crown that once belonged to Empress Eugenie, who was the wife of Napoleon III. I mean, could you just imagine, you're at the Louvre, not only has this heist taken place, but then you spot one of the priceless artifacts worth millions of euros just sitting on the ground. Now, the whole thing took just a few minutes, and in all, the thieves made off with 8 pieces. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to talk with a retired special agent with the FBI's art crime team. His name's David Bass. He's also the co-founder of the Art Legacy Institute, because we want to get insight into how these thieves could have planned this, not only how they could have pulled it off, but the biggest question of all is, even if you have these suspects in custody, are you ever going to see those artifacts ever again? I do want to dig into everything that we know at this point about the two suspects who were apprehended just about a week after the heist. So far, the men have not been identified publicly. In fact, it seems that French authorities did not want this information to get out. Apparently, they're concerned that now that it's in the news, that the two other suspects who they're looking for would go underground and then be even harder to find. Here is what a Paris prosecutor said in a statement, quote, "I deeply regret the hasty disclosure of this information. This revelation can only hinder the investigative efforts of the 100 or so mobilized investigators, both in the search for the stolen jewelry and for all the perpetrators. It is too early to provide any specific details." Anonymous insiders did reveal some information. According to reporting from the La Parisienne, both men in custody, they're in their 30s, and one of them was stopped at Charles de Gaulle Airport as he tried to board a flight to Algeria. There's a second suspect who was found and arrested in a suburb of Paris. Now, the two men are reportedly already known to police. One is reportedly actually known for jewelry robberies, and there's speculation that they could have been part of a team hired to go in and grab the jewels. The case could be connected to traditional organized crime, or maybe it's a network that specializes in trafficking of art or pieces that have cultural significance. something that may not be heavily reported on, but is a serious issue worldwide. So how were investigators able to identify and track down the two suspects? Well, while it may seem like they were criminal masterminds, the Empress's crown wasn't the only thing that was left behind at the scene. They also abandoned a helmet, a vest, and gloves. And according to the prosecutor, more than 150 swabs were taken inside the museum, in the truck, and from the abandoned items. The truck had apparently been stolen from a man who had listed it for sale online, with French authorities saying the thieves threatened him but didn't use any violence. They allegedly tried to set fire to the truck before fleeing, but they weren't able to. Now, as the thieves were making off with goods, all sorts of security protocols were in motion inside the Louvre. The AP reports that when the men entered the Apollo Gallery at 9:34 a.m. via the window, an alarm was triggered in the security control room. A staff member made a radio call to command center members, alerting them that something was up. By 9:37 a.m., the police had been alerted and security guards started an evacuation. But the Louvre's director acknowledged in testimony to the French Senate that there were serious flaws in the museum's surveillance system. She says that there's a shortage of security cameras outside the Louvre, and the museum was scheduled to undergo a security overhaul as part of a massive renovation, but that hadn't happened yet. While French investigators have been praised for their quick work in apprehending at least some of the suspects, there's one question on everyone's minds. Did they recover the jewels? And for now, it seems that the answer is no. The Paris prosecutor did not say whether the jewelry was found, and multiple French media outlets are reporting that the jewels are still out there somewhere, along with the two other men believed to be involved in the brazen theft. For now, both men have been taken into police headquarters, and they can be held for questioning for up to 96 hours. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, I need to take a moment and thank our partners and sponsor at Morgan & Morgan. We're talking about America's largest injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In just the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That's 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Now, even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 clicks on your phone. So if you've been hurt and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. Joining us now is retired special agent with the FBI's art crime team, Dave Bass. Thank you for being with us on Law and Crime. You're a great person to talk to because this story is just absolutely fascinating. Just first off, what was your reaction when you learned what the 4 suspects were able to pull off at the Louvre?
I guess my first reaction was just dismay that something like this could happen. And these things do happen, right? I mean, there's been several, very, very notorious art heist, and it's always sad to see because at the root of it is we're losing valuable cultural property, right? So it's a tragic loss, and anytime a cultural institution as esteemed as the Louvre is targeted, it's disheartening.
Before we get into the possibility of whether any of these artifacts could ever be retrieved again, the way that they went about it, where they were in and out, and I think it was less than 10 minutes, and they kind of smashed through the case, grabbed stuff, and run. How does that compare to some of the other art heists you've seen? Just the way that they went about it to actually get away with these, more than 100 million US, dollars worth of jewels.
Yeah, well, the first thing that stands out in my mind is just it seemed to be well rehearsed, right? And their choice of time of day, it seemed like it was a pretty good plan, possibly based on some really great surveillance or maybe, as has been suggested, inside information. The choice of time, the fact that there were actual patrons in the museum, I think that's what sort of makes this one stand out, is it was just very brazen.
There's two out of right now, from what we understand, 2 out of the 4 suspects are in custody. There's really been no statement yet about the jewels and where they may be. Where does your mind go with what potentially happened to those artifacts after they were able to escape?
So, obviously, in most of these crimes, they get immediately secreted away somewhere. They may have even been taken out of the country at this point. But I think that the good news is that French authorities have made the 2 arrests, right? So, and that's great police work. It's outstanding police work. Of course, not many details have been provided, but in my mind, the fact that there have been these 2 arrests is a great development, in that it increases the likelihood that these things are going to be recovered.
When it comes to these artifacts, because I know in a previous episode we kind of went through each one, whether it's like a tiara or a crown, and those have diamonds that can be valuable. Take them off of the crown and a diamond still has value to it. And like one thing I think of is, if they stole the Mona Lisa, you cut the Mona Lisa into 4 pieces and it might not have the same value as being the entire object. I mean, how likely is it that these items could still be in one piece when found?
I think it's pretty good likelihood. I mean, I want to stay optimistic and believe that they're still together. One of the challenges with items like this is, especially the jewels and the gems in these pieces, is that they're old cuts. They're not the modern cuts that are optimized for modern electrical lighting, right? They were the old European cuts that were mainly done to look great in candlelight. And so they have to be recut for that reason, to make them modern cuts, and then also just to hide them, right? To make them look different than what they are. And in order to do that, it's not an easy thing to do. There's several places that come to mind, like Israel, Antwerp, Thailand, India, where these craftsmen work and do this type of work, where they'll recut gems. But all that is to say that when you steal something like this out of the Louvre, its value comes from the fact that it's an intact artifact, right? And when you take it apart, I'd be surprised if they could even realize, less than 10% of the value that's currently being given to the pieces. So, I've said from the beginning that my hope is that this was some type of ransom reward scenario, commonly referred to as art napping, where the thieves, of course, their motivation is monetary, but what they're trying to do is negotiate some type of return reward, which in some cases can be quite a bit of money. Now, of course, in this situation, we haven't heard anything from French authorities about a reward. And there's probably several reasons for that, right? They don't want to encourage this type of activity. And in fact, it may not even, in several countries, the law doesn't allow to pay ransoms like this for that very reason. They want to discourage this type of activity. However, in some cases, in past cases, they've been behind the scenes dealing and working through intermediaries, and they're able to do it through legal loopholes.
I was wondering that because you think of the old phrase, we don't negotiate with terrorists, and in different, certainly in human hostage situations. But in this one, are the French known to negotiate for, if they have an artifact that has been taken with someone who tries to hold a ransom?
I don't think it's unprecedented, but I think like in the United States, for example, when you hear of rewards offered, it's always in exchange for information leading to the arrest and apprehension of those responsible, right? So in that way, it sort of discourages the art napping scenarios. I would think that French authorities at this point, we really don't know what they knew when they knew it, but certainly they've been tight-lipped for good reason, right? They want to maintain the integrity of their investigation. And certainly they've achieved results. They've got 2 people in custody, and this is a remarkable development in the case. They're going to be able to possibly link those two to the other culprits, and maybe even others who are involved in the conspiracy. So there's a lot of directions that the French can go at this point, and a reward might not be something they're even entertaining at this point.
And even if they are, say it's not an art napping situation, and if someone was to take this, and clearly it's a price, these are priceless items that they have, but I know the numbers that have been put around, like more than $100 million. You can't take it to, not to make light of it, it's not like you can walk into a pawn shop with this and then you'd be able to get that money. I mean, what is the market for something that's so hot in terms of law enforcement wanting it? Like, where does it go in these situations when a piece of art like this has been taken?
Well, certainly some of these things end up in the underground as, bartering pieces. But I think that the more important point is that you're right. Once there's so much attention focused on a piece, no one wants to touch it. And I would even go as far as to say the fact that there have been these arrests, there's a lot of nervous individuals out there right now that were associated with this crime. And it's certainly this development, these arrests would deter, I think, anyone from wanting to get involved, who might be willing to take stolen property. I think there's the amount of attention at this point has got to be extreme, and it's going to serve as, I think, a great deterrence. And I think that ultimately my hope is that combined with the great police work by the French is going to lead to the recovery of these items.
The Louvre is maybe the most popular museum in the world. I know it's one of, if not the most visited museum in the world. What was their reputation prior to this when it comes to security? You think of the items that they have in there. I mean, it's the Mona Lisa is obviously one that comes to mind, but then these items that were taken, as well as many other pieces of art, are some of the most valued on the planet.
Well, I think you have to keep in mind that the Louvre first opened as a museum in 1793, around that time period. And so the Louvre, unlike many institutions, many modern museums, was never really designed to be a modern museum. So in that regard, the Louvre has incredible challenges, more so than most institutions at having great security. And as far as their reputation, the Louvre has always been a top-notch institution. It certainly, security has always been a big part of what they do. It's just a daunting task. And, there's no such thing as a museum that is impervious to being victimized in this way. About the best that a museum can do is just keep weighing that balance between having proper security in place, but yet maintaining its accessibility to the public. More than 30,000 people walk through the Louvre a day. That's incredible. And so just like many of the institutions around the world, it's that trade-off that you're constantly dealing with of being open and accessible and yet being a secure environment. So I think that the French have done the right thing by coming out and just acknowledging that it was a security failure. It obviously was. But to say that the Louvre doesn't take security seriously, or that they're not great at it, is not, I think, and I think it's been characterized that way by some people, but I don't think that's a fair statement. I think that the Louvre's an outstanding institution. And I'm sure that all the employees there are very disheartened by this development, by the theft. And I think they're going to do the right thing now. They're going to take a look back at what worked, what didn't work. I think that there were some problems on the outside of the building. Obviously, there were some blind spots. And, hopefully this is a great learning point. And, my hope is, if there's a silver lining in all of this, is that institutions around the world take a look at their security posture. And again, it's that way, that trade-off. And I have never met a museum security director who said they had enough security or enough of a budget or enough personnel, right? So that's sort of, I guess in a nutshell, that's sort of my take on the security at the Louvre. Top-notch institution. there were problems like there are anywhere, and these thieves in particular took advantage of the weak spots.
And knowing that there were weak spots, and they knew those weak spots, it seems. They knew where the blind spots were. And one of the theories from the beginning that was suggested was this was an inside job, that they had to have had somebody working for the Louvre or someone who could have passed on the information of, hey, cameras here don't really work. If you're going to be a construction crew, this is where you want to line up, and all those different things. Knowing that, how likely would it be, based off the fact they were able to pull this off, that someone could have helped them from the inside?
It almost seems that way, right? I mean, for everything you said is absolutely correct. I mean, the choice of timing, the entry point, all those things definitely sort of suggest that they might have had either incredibly well done surveillance where they were in the museum and were able to sort of case their target. But it seems as though that they might have known a little bit too much about where the weaknesses were. And, the big tip-off to me is the exact time, 9:30 in the morning, 30 minutes after the massive crowds at the front door, right, are coming into the museum. Most of your security staff is going to be rightly focused there, getting the visitors into the museum. And they seem to have known that and took advantage of it. And as you watch the videos that have been sort of out there, you can kind of see they don't seem like they're in a massive hurry. I mean, they're certainly doing it quickly, but they didn't seem concerned about much from what I saw.
That was the thing too. The getaway just was. It was just slow compared to what you would think, but then well thought out, because anybody who's been to Paris, that the motor scooters are something that just, you can blend in with everybody else so quickly to get away. We'll see what happens next. 2 of the 4 suspects reportedly arrested at this point. We'll see who they are, their connections, and what played out. Dave Bass, retired special agent with the FBI's Law&Crime team. It's great to have you on Law&Crime. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Chris.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.